Hi, I'm Roy Webb. I'm the superintendent of the Canton Union School District, and we want to try a new way to communicate with our parents. We want to film a monthly podcast as a way to talk about what's taking place in our schools and what's trending. We're going to call it What's Trending in Education in the Canton Schools. And this is just a new way that we want to try to help make our school district a better place. It's a way to communicate with parents. It's a way to communicate with staff and students. So this is our first one, so we're just trying it out. We have a great school district. We have great students. We have a great and dedicated staff. We have parents that are supportive. And we have a community that's extremely supportive of the education system. So this is just one more thing that we're going to try to communicate. If you'd like to hear certain topics or certain things about our schools, talk to me, and I'd be happy to talk about them in a podcast, because if you're interested, probably other people are as well. What I want to talk about on this first podcast is something that is very important for the success of our schools, and that's parental involvement. Now, I'm not going to sit here and give you parenting tips. To tell you the truth, I could barely handle my own two kids. But I do want to talk to you a little bit about the importance of your involvement in your child's education. Statistics and data tells us that the most important determining factor in a student's success at school is parent involvement. To tell you the truth, the same data tells us that the biggest determining factor whether your student is involved in drugs or alcohol is parent involvement. The biggest determining factor on if your student's success in staying out of trouble or getting into a discipline matter is parent involvement. You are the most important decision or determining factor in the success of your young student. So your involvement is extremely important. So how do you be involved? Parents ask me that all the time. There's a lot of different ways, but I think the biggest part is just having that time, that communication time with your student. And sometimes it's tough. I had a son and a daughter in school as they went through, and when my daughter used to come home and she would walk through the door and I'd say, "Hey, how did school go?" About 45 minutes later, the conversation was winding down as she continued to talk about how great her school day went or what she learned. She was a great communicator, and she talked my ear off. When I asked my son, "Hey, how did school go today?" "Fine." "Well, how did math class go?" "Good." How did English class go?" "All right." One word answers. So it was a lot more difficult to get inside my son's head and figure out, how his school day went. That's just the way they were. And I'm sure your kids are different, each one of them. And some are easy to communicate, others are tougher. But I think you still have to ask those questions and spend time with them and talk about their education. One thing that you need to drive home are your expectations, and what's their expectations for them as they work through their education process. And I tell, our graduation rate is probably about 88% in the district, and that's not good enough. We want to be 100%. And so what I talk to our teachers, that's not a high school issue. That's an entire school district issue. We have to set that expectation very young that you're going to graduate from high school. And our expectation is you're going to go on to a 2 or a 4-year college or beyond that. The expectation is that you're going to do well in your life and be successful. And that has to start very young. And I tell our teachers, that starts in preschool and first grade. You have to start telling, hey, the expectation for you is you're going to graduate high school. You're going to go on to college. You're going to do great things with your life for this community and for the United States. And that expectation needs to be set. And I appreciate you at home having that same expectation. And I'm sure most of you do. And that is a great determining factor on if the student is going to graduate or is going to do well in school. It's your expectation. And you need to start that early, when they're very young, first, second grade. Continue to tell them, hey, you need to do well in school now, and you're going to graduate, and you're going to go on to college. Whether you went on to college or not, that's got to be the expectation for them, to do well. And follow what they trust is very important. Today's global world is changing very fast. And if they don't have a proper education, it's going to be very tough for them to compete in a world where computers are going to take their orders or cash them out at the cash register. A lot of service jobs, a lot of manufacturing jobs are not going to be there. They're going to be different. We're still going to have the service jobs. We're definitely still going to have manufacturing jobs in our area. We're going to have agriculture jobs and financial jobs, and all those jobs will exist, but they're going to be very different. Our students are going to have to be able to think. They're going to have to be able to problem solve, and they're going to have to be able to use technology in the future. But they're also going to have to be able to communicate. So that's very important. Set that expectation and set it high. Set the expectations for how they live their life. Are they making wise choices? Are they being drug-free? You have to set that expectation and then hold them accountable for that expectation. You know, there's a lot of different ways to communicate as they come in the door or whatever. But we started a program last year, and I'd like to see it take off a little bit. It was have a meal with your family. You know, you may think that's a little hokey, but I think it's important that we sit down and take time to eat together and have a discussion as a family. And we had some great times at our family dinner. And we were pretty busy with our lives, but we took time to do that. And I think you need to too. It may be a 5 o'clock meal. It may be an 8 or 9 o'clock meal. I don't know. I know some of our high school kids are extremely busy, and it's tough to fit in that meal. But it's important. If not 5 days a week, if not 3 days a week, at least try it 1 day a week, having that meal with the family. And then sit around and talk about things that are going well. Turn off the phones, both for me and you, is what I used to tell my kids. And then sit down and talk and discuss. Talk about their life. Talk about their school. Talk about what's going well. Talk about what's not going well. Talk about their concerns, not only for now, but for the future. You'll have some good discussions. And, you know, I go into households every now and then making a home visit, and we'll see the dining room table filled with papers, filled with the daily work, filled with computers. It's got everything setting on it, so it can't be used as the dinner table. And that's a shame. You got to take time to talk with your kids. And, you know, look over your dinner table now. And, you know, is it ready for the evening meal and ready for that discussion? I think that's a good thing to do. You know, if you haven't done it in a while, it may seem a little hokey, or maybe you don't even know how to hold that conversation. Or reach out to someone who might, and ask for a little help. I'd be thrilled to death if someone said, "Hey, you know what? How do I hold a conversation with my student? What questions should I ask?" I'd be thrilled to death to come over to your house and be part of your conversation one time. You know, invite a guest to dinner. We used to do a lot of that, I guess, in the 50s and the 60s. You know, neighbors would come over for supper. We don't do that a lot anymore, and maybe we should. So this is our first podcast. I'm going to try this each month. We'll bring in, you know, it's not just going to be me. That would be a boring podcast. But I want to bring in some guest speakers. We'll talk about what's trending in education. I hope to talk to you about core curriculum, talk to you about school finances, talk to you about drugs and alcohol in our schools, and how we can make an impact on that, because we are. And if you have some ideas on what you'd like to see in this, by all means, let me know. But at any time you have a question or concern, please give me a call, stop in the district office. I love to go to events, so if you see me at an event, I love discussing education, so just ask me. Thanks a lot. Team Canton, student ready.